Welcome to Precon Geeks, your home for all things pre-construction. I'm your host, John Reich, and I'm joined today by Jeff Sample. Now, Jeff Sample is a host of a podcast called ConTechCrew, and he also is a tech evangelist for our industry. And he's been a big part in helping join grow and really pushing the limits of technology of what we can do in the pre-construction industry. So how are you doing today, Jeff?
I'm great, John. Thanks so much for having me here. You know me, anytime I get a chance to sit down with a microphone and really talk about technology and construction, I'm in my element. So this is where I want to be. And I love Precon Geeks, man. I mean, embrace what we are, embrace what we need, and we need Precon Geeks. So I'm excited to talk to the Precon Geeks out there today.
Oh yeah, that's it is definitely a geek dominated industry for sure. You got to be a little bit of a tech geek to be able to do pre-con in today's market for sure. So main thing I wanted to have you on today about was you did a webinar with us a few years ago, and you had this concept that you talked about there called the fourth industrial revolution, and I really thought that kind of we're right in it right now, and we're right at the beginning stages of it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that with you. So, can you kind of explain what we mean by that fourth industrial revolution concept?
Yeah, we're I'm kind of stealing from a phase that you hear and kind of hear around, and it usually refers to things like robotics and virtualization and automation and a lot of the technology tools that are growing and that are driving the change in the world around us and have picked up speed in other industries. And we learn a lot in construction from manufacturing, so the term's usually used for manufacturing, but I spun that term around because I like to say that the fourth industrial revolution will be televised from a construction job site near you. And that's because we're better for things like autonomous driving or sensors or whatnot to find and be effective in ever-changing environments. Construction job site, right? It's different every
Yeah,
day. It's dangerous, but it's also controlled, right? We say it's not the wild west. It's a fairly controlled environment. We have safety protocols. We have protocols on these job sites. So that's what it means there. And I think to the pre-con folks that are listening in, it's also digital automation, right? It's the
right.
digitization. It's how these tools and technologies, especially because you can't turn a corner without hearing somebody mention Chat GPT or some other AI model that's coming out right now. Well, that's a huge opportunity for the industry to grab a hold of something that can really automate us, make us faster.
Yeah.
I don't know a single company out there that's like, "Oh, I have way too many estimators. I should make one of you something else." Like I have way too many people in pre-construction, right? Maybe there's a few that think that, but, I don't know any of them that are going home at like 38 hours long in a week, right?
No, I would say the pre-con industry as a whole is definitely looking for new people all the time, and everyone that's in it is, you talk to everyone and they're like totally overworked, totally busy, looking for ways to be more efficient. And I really think that's the exciting piece of what technology can do for us is that it's, everyone's scared about, well, will this take my job away? And it's like, no, it's just going to make you able to do your job way better, way faster, and much more consistently than what you can do today manually. So I think that's really the cool thing is you can expand your workforce without even really adding anything onto it.
Yeah, and that leans right into the fourth industrial revolution, right? We're augmenting the people that we have using technology tools to make people do more of what they're better at, right? People are good at counting things and adding things up, but I will tell you computers are better at it, right? They're faster, they're more efficient, and they're a lot more accurate. But they
Yeah.
don't make decisions for you, right? They don't understand projects. They don't understand the needs that we have as humans or as a project team or as a pre-construction executive on what you're trying to run for your company. So that's where I think it's a huge opportunity. I mean, we're seeing it, and with what you guys are doing with Beck and your ability to with Destiny and others to um, really make that process easier and get people's heads out of looking down and counting things and up into analyzing things. And that's where my gig at Join with as an evangelist there was really helping people understand that, okay, what do you do with all this data now that you got
Right.
from back? How do you articulate that to a team and drive to make some decisions on it, right? And I think that was the path of where we were. When you think about where can we go next, there's so many places that we can go, and that's why I also think right now we're trying to pull people into pre-construction and estimating in general. And I think pretty soon we're going to see it be a place they want to be because
Right.
of the amazing things that you're capable of doing because of the tool sets that are being built right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that, I started off as a superintendent out in the field, and that's a really cool job. It's a lot of fun. You get to do a lot of really cool things. You get to see a lot of interesting, awesome things getting built, massive cranes and dozers and everything working on the site. But one of the things that drew me into Precon specifically was the amount of influence I could have on a job. You can make massive swings and massive shifts in a job very early in the process, and you can make it the job significantly better just with a few, in my case, clicks of a mouse or notations on a spreadsheet. I think that was so cool that you could say I fundamentally changed that job and made it better because of decisions I made and information I gave to the owner. So I think that's really really cool to me. That's where I really enjoyed the pre-con process.
Yeah, I mean, and you made it safer, right? I mean, if we think we're not getting enough people in pre-construction, we don't have enough people in the field either, right? We have to
Right.
be far more effective with them, far safer with them, and far more efficient with everyone, right? Make their lives better. We don't want them working 80 hours either. Creates a dangerous environment, and it doesn't really end up in a better product. If you look at the
Right.
amount of mistakes that are made because people, when they reach a certain point, are overworked, it's just natural, right? It has to happen. And isn't that cool that with a couple clicks of a mouse, you can save that time, build a better product, or help provide a better product, and in the future, and especially this is happening right now with the industrialization and moving into a design for manufacturing and assembly type world with the right building information modeling tools, with the right people at the table at the earliest. I mean, that was something I learned from my time at Join was, the earlier at the table, the stakeholders are there, the experts, the
Right.
more we can do off site, better, faster, more, higher quality, less people. And man, let's talk risk, reduce risk, right?
Absolutely. That's the name of the
And
game.
and that's all, and literally that can all be predicated on the click of a mouse, of just understanding inside of a spec what a decision in a spec might be precluding you from doing in the future from a fabrication perspective, right? That's the future of what advanced pre-construction folks are going to be able to do, right? Just dotting I's and counting things and adding things up. Just that's not the skill set. The skill set is knowing means and methods. It's
Right.
knowing how that works. It's why you came from the field and ended up in the pre-con area, not because you wanted to go and do those, necessarily the estimating portion of things, but because you wanted to impact more jobs.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. I mean, it's funny because it's if you actually look at the kind of nuts and bolts of pre-con, it's a extremely boring project. I mean, it's you're counting stuff and you're putting that count on a spreadsheet and you're taking the price that someone gives you and you're multiplying them together and you get the result. And like at its core, that's what most people think it is.
yeah,
But I really think it's more if that might be what estimating is, but pre-construction is so much more than that. You're making decisions on better ways to do things and more efficient ways to do things. And hey, have you considered this? This could make your job. You get 20% more product out of the project for the same cost, and you might get it faster. And that's where I think that's where I really enjoyed pre-con. That's what I really loved about doing it. So
well, yeah, and it's funny. You can almost understand the evolution of a company and where they are in their transformation as when you ask them what is pre-construction to them. If they lead with estimating, then okay, we know where you are in your process, right? You're probably living in a heavy design bid build world. And we're seeing that move away. More and more of the work is gone from that. In fact, the majority of the work is gone from that. It's a design build because owners, all those folks want to make decisions and want to be informed on what impact is this going to have on me,
And
right?
true impact too, not just
Yeah,
like, oh, it's going to look prettier. No, I want to know schedule. I want to know cost. I want to know long-term longevity of the project. How's it going to perform? All of that goes into pre.
yeah. It's not like, is it high or is it low? It's what will I get for my money, and what will I get for my money today, and what could that actually possibly give me further? And we're just at the precipice of that, right? We still talk about cost a lot with that, but look around, our world's getting crazier, and we've had a lot of environmental impacts, and whether or not and where
Mhm.
you sit in global warming, et cetera, we're releasing more carbon than we ever have. And quite frankly, we care about that now, and
Yeah,
owners care about that more than ever. And they're going to start placing demands on our contractors around that. So now we've got cost, we've got schedule, we've got green, we've got constructability. Man, that's a lot of things. So that may be that's why we're seeing pre-construction departments grow to the size that they're growing, right?
yeah,
But how do we equip them? What do we do with it? How do they do that? And that's what's cool about, being an evangelist, is I'm out there and get a chance to be out there and saying, if you don't see this coming, be ready. It is coming. The deluge is coming for you. And, I think we were talking about this on the pre-call, is that, like, if you thought estimating software moving to digital and automated takeoff and those things were big, wait till we really start looking at the data. Wait till we really start leveraging the data and we take all of this into consideration. Think about what it's going to take for that person now to
yeah,
really effectively do their job and drive large projects to finish.
yeah. I'm thank you for the segue into the big data question, because that I really wanted to get into that too, because I think there's been talk just in business in general, not even in construction, but just in the business world, of big data and big data sets, and how do you treat that, and how do you mine it for information and make decisions based on it. Where do you think the big data kind of revolution, for lack of a better term, is in the construction industry right now, and where do you think we're going to be going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Um, I'd like to say we're
Easy,
barely.
easy question.
Yeah,
Easy question.
right.
Just
Easy question. Just I'd like to say we're not even at we're barely at conception, to be honest. If you
yep.
look at all the other areas out there, and a great one to look at if you want is the Human Genome Project, right? Like what we've done with DNA and the way that we've been able to amass the data that have allowed us to, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? We always get people who want to have a discussion philosophically. I just want to tell you that the rapid building of vaccines would never have been possible before at the
Right.
rate that they were possible during what we saw during COVID. That was actually all driven by years of enterprise data. And in construction, we don't even understand that word, right? And if you don't want to talk about that, we can talk about how many people fly everywhere, and the fact that, the FCC, they have their own, like, all of that exists, and we don't even have the beginning of it. And if you think your accounting software is big data, you're wrong. If you
Right.
think your wonderfully built assemblies in your estimating solution are big data, you're wrong. Right? Big data is everybody's estimating, everybody's reality capture and scanning, and it's all of that in one at an enterprise level, right?
Right.
Where we're all sharing it. And that's the power of an enterprise data model, and it's something Charlie Dunn and I have talked quite a bit about. In that we believe it's needed. We believe it's needed in construction because, look, we've been whipped around so often about where we are in our digital transformation, and
Mhm.
while I'll say we're at our data infancy, we're not at the infancy of our innovation. Right. There's a fallacy that the construction industry is not innovative and is not progressive. Look at the stadiums around you, the high-speed rails, the infrastructure projects, the data centers, the EV
Right.
battery factories. Look at the skyscrapers. Look at Millionaires Row in New York City. I don't care how you feel about it. You have to be impressed with it.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and none of that happens if we're not innovative, if we're not exceptionally good at what we do as an industry. It's just that we've been pointed against each other for so long that we don't share our data. We
Yeah.
actually, too, I think there was a period of time where people felt like their data was their IP. I will tell you right now that your data is not your IP. Again, because it's not enterprise. And I think this might be a little raw to say, but like all your data tells you is how much you suck. It doesn't tell us how much everybody sucks. And we need to know where we're really, really good and where we're really, really bad as a whole. And we need everybody so we can benchmark that and get an idea of
Yeah.
how we compare and where we compare. Right. And that
Yeah.
and that's the key to why we want to do something like that or why we want to see somebody do something like that.
Yeah, I think it's funny because you always hear you see the efficiencies in like manufacturing, how that's gone up so much, and why is construction lagging? But then if you go to the same path, it's okay, well, you build a skyscraper 50 years ago or a large office tower 50 years ago, and you compare it to one built today, the number of systems that you've got in the building has quadrupled probably. I mean, we've got um, mechanical systems that are significantly more efficient and more complex. You've got plumbing systems that are significantly more efficient and complex. You've got electrical systems. I mean, every system in the building has significantly scaled up in terms of its complexity and efficiencies. And so the all the parts together as a whole, you look at it and say, well, you're taking 3 months longer to build a building now than you used to. And it's like, well, I'm cramming 10 times as much stuff into the same space. There's limits to what we can do. So I think I agree. Construction as a whole needs to become more efficient and continue working on improving that efficiency and speed to market and those kind of things. But I also think we kind of sell ourselves short a little bit in that the buildings we build now are vastly different than what my dad grew up building and what my
Hmm.
grandfather grew up building. They're significantly different, and we need to, give ourselves a little bit of credit of like, yeah, we can't do it much faster, but it's significantly better and higher quality, and you're getting a much better product now than you used to. So it's just you got to look at it a little bit differently than you did 50 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, and you can't just put it through some sort of lens that somebody else created for you, because of course you'll see it from their perspective. That's the way they'll see it, right? Because they want to see it that way. But we see the systems, we see the things that go involved in them. And man, you think about 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they didn't have the internet in there. They
Yeah,
didn't have smart systems. Not everything was electrified. Like this is just a much more complicated, much more complex world in which we build now. And I hope there's not a single craftsperson out there that looks down on themselves and doesn't pat themselves on the back that we actually continue to put buildings up. If it was up to people like me putting buildings up, y'all wouldn't walk outside because things would fall on you. I'm bad at it. Trust me. And so I think everybody out there building, in the crafts world of all types is doing a phenomenal job and should actually take their place at the forefront. I mean, I think as we look at the economy moving forward, what's one of the things that no one's worried about so far in the economy is that construction and infrastructure and those things are still going to happen, right?
yeah,
There's maybe some ups and downs in certain places, but we've been the backbone through COVID. We were the backbone of the economy.
yeah,
You know, right after they did, fire and police and ambulance and hospital, construction. And
yeah,
we kept going through it. And we had to innovate through that. I mean, I saw some structures go up during and talk to some project teams that went up during COVID, and they had to work separately from one another, and they still did it efficiently, right? They only lost so much in the schedule, but not a ton, not as much as probably could. So you're absolutely right. We have to give ourselves credit for that. But if we don't keep pushing forward and trying to get more efficient and trying to get better and reducing risk, then we're not doing our job, right? And I love manufacturing and what we can learn from them. But if we move the manufacturing plant every week on them, I guarantee you your shirts would cost a lot more. Your
Yeah.
glasses would cost a lot more. Our products would cost way too much, right? Because, well, we don't just pick the whole thing up and shake it around and move it and go, okay, you guys figure it out again.
Well, not only that, just you're taking, an indoor environment, you're like, okay, well, take that whole, take that Toyota manufacturing plant apart, move it to a different location.
Yep.
We're not going to tell you what the site is until you arrive, and then you've got to rebuild it right there and then continue manufacturing the same thing at the same efficiency. It's insane to compare ourselves in that way, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so going back to I know we got off on a tangent and hopefully everyone will still be riding with us. But if we go back to the big data point,
Yeah.
so an individual company, you said, in all likelihood, the individual company doesn't have what you would term as big data because they haven't been able to pool their information in. Do you see a move in the industry, or do you think that the industry is going to move to a point where people will share their, obviously will protect it for proprietary reasons or whatever, but are people going to be more open to sharing their information so that we can make the industry as a whole better and more efficient?
Yeah, I think we have to. And I think you're actually seeing people start to, like I said, since it was at the early conception, you're starting to see the earliest versions of it. I
Right.
don't know who's going to do the enterprise, true enterprise, like when we have a construction industry data model that's out there that we can pull from, but you're already starting to see it because interoperability and the ability to transfer data more automated is starting to happen. I've talked to a number of people, and originally, on an RFP for software, it was like, "Do you have an API?" Yes. Check. Okay, whatever. It's like, no, they didn't even ask that before. Then they
Right.
asked it just because they wanted the box checked, and now they actually ask like, "Who do you integrate with? How do you integrate? What's that API worth? What can I get in and out of it? How can I own my data?" Right?
Yeah.
And so we're starting to see those things go, and we really have to see it, um because companies are really also starting to leverage it, right? They've got to put it to work, and we're already starting to see groups that can do it leverage that data to do and drive better decision making in the future. I had the team on from formerly Rivet, now it's a Trimble company,
Okay.
Tom Stem and Nathan Wood, and we were talking about it, and it was like, um, data has to drive the information that we need so that we can make data informed decisions. Too often in the industry, we're looking over our shoulder and we're walking into the next wall.
Right.
If our data can, the automation of our data can come together and we can see what we've done in the past and see what we're going to do, and then use that to help us make a better decision in the future, now we can get more efficient,
Yeah,
right?
you need it to be predictive, not just reactive. You need to be able to predict what the future is and say, okay, there's a risk here because the past 10, 15, 20 projects we've seen with these conditions had these, this range of outcomes. We know that we don't want the bottom range of these, so we're going to do things to mitigate that risk going forward. I think that's going to be really cool when we get to that point. Is like, hey, this building, I mean, this is obviously a bad example, but this building was built on a swamp. We have to beef up the foundations to make sure that they'll stay up, that kind of thing. We all know it, but getting more nuanced and subtle predictive indicators like that would be a big boon for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, it would be great. I mean, you go all the way back to when I was working for a project management company, and we would say, listen, here's the one thing about productivity, right? Here's a great data point, right? I'm always looking for, what's my unit labor productivity, right? Isn't that part of that math you used to do? Well, yeah, that's great, but after I reach a certain floor of the building, I'm not as productive as I was on the first floor or the second floor. Right. And what
Right.
all I'm doing with that current data is I'm amalgamating it. So I started at the bottom floor and I get all the way to the 20th floor and I put it all together and I divide it up and I go, okay, that's how productive we are. Well, what if we knew that at 12 floors is about where we top out in productivity, and those are the most efficient way for us to consistently build, say, housing, multifamily housing or something, and that you're a developer in that space and you want to understand what floor should I stop at because I get the most value and I can keep producing. Great. Here's a great piece of information for you to learn. Or, when do I switch a means and methods? Hey, maybe this means and methods works for the first 10 floors, but it doesn't work for structures above that. Or, hey, it doesn't make you your money back until you get to 20 stories. Or, like a good one is bathroom pods.
Yeah.
You don't need to use prefabricated bathroom pods if you have 4. What's the break even point? I don't know. I mean, maybe it is. I mean, maybe there's places where 4 is fine, but really that's not what manufacturing is all about, right? It's like how many of those pods does it make it worthwhile for me to really start looking at that type of prefabrication, that type of offsite? There's just all sorts of data points. So we've seen this, right? It's not new to us that we've learned leading indicators.
Right.
We've learned them in lots of places. I mean, you were talking about it before, and clean job is a safe job. We didn't just feel that was the case. We actually used the data to learn that, oh, that is actually the case.
Yeah.
And there's lots of examples of where we've learned this kind of information from the data.
Yeah. So in the clean job example, if you sweep the job and you make sure there's no debris on the hallways, yes, it makes it easier to walk through. And when you walk your owner through, or walk your exec through, it looks nicer. You look more professional. But at the end of the day, you have less slip and fall hazards. And over time, over the course of a job, every job a company runs in a year, that is an actual monetary benefit because you have less lost time incidents. You end up having a better insurance rate. There's all these cascading benefits that you get. That I think, like safety, we've already started that kind of mindset, but we aren't really seeing that same mindset in the other aspects of construction. So I really think that would be a good, if we can get to the point where we can start aggregating this information and pulling together industry-wide metrics, we could really start driving projects in a better direction to make them more efficient and more productive and more profitable for everyone involved.
Yeah, I mean, we could really start pulling that golden thread. And I think, again, I love to get, theoretical, but a good one for folks listening in pre-construction and to our estimators is, your cost codes,
Yeah.
right? Your master format, your uniformat, being able to relate things like master format, uniformat, building area phasing, those types of data points, right? We do so much of that in our estimating process. We do so much of that in the early process. And then a lot of times it just gets handed over into a black hole and we don't
Yeah.
know necessarily what happens. And then are we ever able to draw it all the way back? Well, why is that important? Because well, first of all, if you don't start at the beginning, which is pre-construction, right? Before construction, then if you don't start at the beginning, you're never going to get a better end. It's just the way, if you're only starting these things in construction, you're only going to get halfway where you need to be.
Yeah.
Right. You need the 3 legs of the stool. So we need that pre-construction and we need that data to stay consistent. And as we move it into project management, we buy jobs out. It doesn't mean you can't buy jobs out the way you used to buy jobs out and do those kinds of things. It means that you need to keep the data integrity as it goes all the way through. And then ultimately makes it into that phase we love to talk about, which is where everybody gets paid. And, we actually close out the job and we hand it over. Well, now if we know all of that information, how can we leverage that to understand how to do things better in the beginning?
Right.
We can understand how to estimate better, right? And how to predict our outcomes. And estimate's not the word I want to use. How to predict the outcomes in the areas in which we're more profitable and more efficient and more predictable and have less risk, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that great information? And then how many of us have really ever held on to that information and said, okay, after 40 years of running the building, how did it really turn out? After 10 years, how did it really turn out? Hey, Mr. and Mrs. owner folks, hey, we really think you should go with this mechanical system because it's going to cost you this much up front and it's going to take us this long to install it. But it's going to pay for itself tenfold in 10 years
Right.
because of the efficiencies and the gains that you're going to get. That's powerful data that can inform decisions that can be made at the earliest and need to be made at the earliest sections of pre-construction. That's where we need to make those. And this is how we're going to do it, right? And so many places that we have to aggregate and bring that data together. But if you don't have the mind to do it, and by the way, it's going to take you a little while to get there. That's
Yeah,
another problem with data that people don't I was on a call with somebody else recently, and the average attention span right now is like 8 seconds for people.
it's the TikTok
And
era. Yeah.
yeah, it's the TikTok era, right? And we're all in instant gratification. I want to pick up my phone and use Instacart to get my stuff delivered right away. I love that.
Yeah.
But but certain things take patience, and data takes patience. If you don't start today, you're already falling behind. And so you've got to make a conscientious decision to collect data. And data is not PDFs. It's not.
No.
That's just digital paper. Now, I used to say this a lot, and I think we're actually headed for a super interesting thing that I'm going to throw at you, John, when it comes to large language models and Elasticsearch. And so for all you folks listening in, like, large language models are a lot of the things that are behind these open AIs and ChatGPT, and our ability to manipulate data in ways we couldn't do before is pretty revolutionary. So a lot of that PDF stuff can actually be unlocked and be turned into very, very useful data. But just making a PDF and storing it in your OneDrive or your SharePoint in another folder named after your job is not data. It's just digital paper. And
It's
it
just
is.
a filing cabinet online. So
Yes, it's just a filing cabinet that doesn't take up space in your office. It just takes up space in some data center somewhere. Where, by the way, the cloud is a data center somewhere, folks.
yeah.
And it costs a lot of money to run those things, right? So, like, you having a copy and 97 other project members having a copy and everybody wanting another copy it's just not efficient, right? We just don't. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about flowing actual data, things we can consume, like those job cost codes, like those categories, like that productivity numbers, like those production rates, those kinds of things. That's data. That's what we need.
Yeah, you need the pool of it that's wide enough and deep enough that then you can actually make informed decisions off of it. It's not my last estimate, it's a data point, that's great, but it isn't data like you're talking about with big data. It is a single point. It's like one atom of water in the ocean. We need the ocean to be filled before we can actually do anything with it. I think that's the hole that most people have. It's hard to capture it in your head as to what we're talking about when we talk about big data. It's so much more than what most people can comprehend on a daily basis.
I like that. I'm going to steal that one from you. It's like one molecule of water is not a place to go swimming.
Yeah,
It's gonna hurt when you try to dive in, but you put them all together and you can dive in and swim around the data. And who's how fascinating is it going to be? What we're going to be able to learn from it, and then
yeah,
what we're going to make and be able to guide those computers to do for us, right? Because again, so much time is spent looking down, you know, in the job instead of up on the job,
right.
right? So same folks that were worried that their data is their IP will also tell you, whoa, whoa, we're in a relationship business here, buddy. And I will agree with you. We are 100% in a human relationship business here in construction, right? It's one of the most complicated human relationships because we are so diametrically different in what each of us does, what each of us cares about, but we're all trying to come together to build a structure of some sort or a project of some sort together
Mhm.
and all win at the same time. So that is all about keeping your head up and looking at what's going on around you and understanding and having empathy and perspective on what each person and what each group needs to be doing on the project itself. And If you're spending your time inputting data and counting things and quite frankly, walking around a job site and checking off things and counting things there as well, or manually trying to cut POs to get paid, then you're not working on the project and on your company. You're working in it. And we need poor people working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are so busy building, and again, I'll take it back to pre-con, if you're so busy building the estimate that you can't plan the job and plan the project, then you're not going to be effective and you can't be successful doing that. You can, yeah, I'll document the hell out of what is on that page and I'll tell you exactly how many widgets are there and I can tell you exactly how much they're going to cost. But if I'm not taking the time to evaluate, well, this is what you have, but I think what you want is this, and here's a better way to do that. Like that's where we can start leveraging this information that we have because, I have a different experience than the owners I worked for. They had different experience than the architects that worked with them. I mean, we all have a different perspective on it, and that's where you can really get more successful projects and more productive projects that you can kind of pool those resources and leverage the information that we have and the knowledge that we have, which is really the value is. It's not the individual like the individual data points themselves. There's really no value we bring there. It's taking the information and saying this is a better way to do it. I'm super excited about that and augmenting our way of doing things in the future with this data. So before we wrap up the conversation today, I just wanted to see, do you have any feedback or thoughts on kind of the two or three biggest data you know data rich environments that we could start using in pre-construction and construction? Like we talked about safety earlier. I know that's one that we actually have some good information. We've started using that a little bit better. What would be the next kind of, hey, we're going to make this change on a job. It's a very small, minor change, but we're going to see some productivity impacts, some big productivity impacts from it.
Ooh.
Again, super easy question.
Yeah, right. You gave me an easy one there. I mean, I think we've seen the battles head out, and this is where I look to software because usually we're seeing the problem being attacked from somewhere in some way, shape, or form. I think it's been termed as reality capture,
Mhm.
right? So it's an amalgamation of our laser scanning, our photos and 360 videos, our drone footage, all of the capture that we create is creating a massive amount of data that and in a lot of cases we're just using it for quote unquote project progress tracking or at least
Right.
visibility, see where we are, right? We're using it at just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much that data, once we can mine it better and understand it, and that's where you're seeing a group of folks head out after that because you can draw it back to its source and learn so much from it, right? How efficient are we? How are we actually doing? And how are we doing compared in reality compared to the model in those areas? I
Right.
also think, when you come and if you want to really think into the estimating world, I think building information modeling, automating takeoffs, automating the things that exist, right? And getting us to use computers to leverage those past estimates, right? Those things are powerful over time.
Yeah.
Years of estimates, years of actuals, years of those things being run together can now help us really glean great information moving forward in those areas. I think gosh, there's so many areas for it.
Hey,
And then,
you've done a good job outlining a lot of things we can do with it. I think
well,
that's pretty
I'd
amazing.
I'd say the last one too. Then is then overlaying on top of that schedule.
Yeah.
Right. If you take the estimating data and the pre-construction data that we have, and you take reality capture data of basically everything that we have from a photo and laser scanning perspective, and then you overlay the time factor. Now we know something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because one thing that we talk about all the time is risk mitigation and predictability. And if we can overlay the data points of estimation and cost, completion, project completion, and schedule, and we can really see how we're doing with that, and we can play with those outcomes, right? From a generative perspective, we can start to run these things through engines that
Right.
can tell us, inform us better on how these outcomes are, where they normally land, and where we also normally run into problems, right? Then we can start attacking problems before they happen. Hey, listen, what if we took all of the data from all of the wastewater treatment plants that we've built across the United States? And let's look. There's some measures up right now to try and get lead out of the remaining pipes that we have in
Yep.
cities. Okay, as we start to undergo that process, if we can collect data early, we'll be able to predictively and efficiently look at how we do that and do it better and look for where there's problems. There's always problems, right? And
Yeah.
we're never going to get rid of all of the problems. But if we can predict and get better and get more efficient as we do these things, then we're doing something with that's really powerful, because we can say, hey, okay, we're going to come in and we're going to have to shut down this area of the city to redo the water pipes, and we've done it 5 times, and we've realized here's the trip wires. We fixed those trip wires, and we're getting better every time we do it. We're being predictable about when that wastewater treatment plant, or when that piping can be redone and how fast it can be redone, or how quickly we can turn over a project of that magnitude and of that importance.
Yeah, because that's not just, yes, everyone talks about construction and yes, a developer puts money up for a job and the construction company has to go build it, and that's going to impact those people. But when you're talking about a municipality or a city or a state planning construction projects for their constituents for those are long time projects. If you can get more efficient in that impacts everyone in that community to a great degree. And so I think that would be really exciting if we can start seeing, hey, we're gonna analyze the speed on how we can do road construction and how we can be more efficient with that, and we're going to analyze that against traffic patterns, and then you can start sequencing things better so the flow of traffic smoother, and then the flow of construction follows it more smoothly. It's just that would be a huge impact for everyone. I'm just hoping that they do that so that I don't have to drive down I-35 and just have it just wreck my life every time I do that. But
Yeah, every time you go out during that second season of the year, construction season, when we're fixing all those roads out there,
yeah.
if we can understand those patterns and do those faster, I think everybody's going to be happier.
Oh yeah, I definitely will be every time I go to Austin. That's for sure.
There you go. And that's the power, and that is one of the things people forget, right? Is that we don't just build skyscrapers, we don't just build stadiums. We build roads, we build bridges, we build power plants, we build water treatment plants. We build basically everything that makes life as you and I know it possible.
Yep.
It's a pretty powerful industry. It's also the calling card we need to be putting out there to our next generation of people. And that's why I like the fourth industrial revolution thing, to bring it full circle, is that technology will be a core component of construction forever moving forward. And we need the smartest, brightest, most innovative people on the planet to come work with us, because there's no better place to shape the world around you than the group that shapes the world around you. Right? That's it. There's just no two other ways. And I want to see. I was thinking about this the other day. I want to see movies made about construction companies and innovators in our space moving forward, because they deserve the pedestal. We deserve our spot in that environment.
Yeah.
Right? Elon Musk doesn't build a rocket. without a launch pad, without the infrastructure to do so, without a facility in which to create the batteries, to build the cars, right? So Elon's on our back, Meta on our back, right? Facebook is data centers across the world. Meta's data centers across the world. Microsoft's data centers across the world, right? I'm not calling any one group out. We built it.
It's everyone.
We're building it now. We
Yeah,
will continue to build it. They need us as much as we want them to be successful, right? We want that. So it's a powerful spot to be in, and I hope a guidance counselor or two listens in at some point, or somebody plays this for one of them, and they start saying, "Hey, let's send our brightest technology folks over into that construction thing."
that would be a huge boon for sure. I hope that that does happen because we need them. We need the best and brightest coming into construction to help us get better and get more efficient for sure. Well, um, it's been a great conversation, Jeff. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, John, for having me. I've really enjoyed the time I got to work with the team at Beck and to work with you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to folks, and to the Precon geeks out there, keep on geeking on, and look for me at a show next year, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. None of this is just from me. It's from having the opportunity to talk to so many people in the industry that are so bright and so much fun.
Oh yeah, it is fun, and it's especially fun right now because the future is so there's so many possibilities, and it's just someone's going to go out there and make something extremely cool and super innovative and super fun, and it's going to be awesome to see that come to fruition for everyone, for sure.
Yep. Yes, it is.
So, well, thank you very much again, Jeff. You are on the podcast ConTechCrew. I'm
It's
assuming you.
the ConTechCrew. You can check us out at thecontechcrew.com or catch us on YouTube, youtube.com/at the ConTechCrew. Or just grab me on LinkedIn. I love to connect with anybody and open the conversation. So feel free to connect with me there as well.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely do that after I get off the podcast with you. But so, as always, for all of our listeners, if you have a topic that you'd like us to talk about or you'd like to come on the podcast yourself, you can email us at precongeek@beck-technology.com. You can also go to our website, www.beck-technology.com, and check out our blog posts. Suzanne's always posted new stuff there. Or you could go on our community page and put some feedback on the podcast there, and we check it out. Anything you put on there, we like to talk about. So, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Jeff, for coming on, and we will catch you guys on the next one.